owner of the Jade Tower Tavern knew about his system. On the other hand, he was simply afraid for her. Terrible red eyes continued to look at everything that was happening from above. There was no way to hide from them in this strange place. Chu felt like they could see right through him. Chu Xingchen asked Liu Tengyun what system he was talking about. Chu added that he didn't quite understand what the owner of the Jade Tower Inn was asking him. True, it was a desperate bluff, but Liu Tengyun didn't buy it. He said that Chu Xingchen had no need to play dumb. He also stated that he knew a lot about systems, and even said that he knew that two systems had recently disappeared. The Chu system said in confusion that it was likely that Liu Tengyun also possessed the system. But she wondered why she didn't feel it. And Chu at this time thought about the stone in Liu's chest. Chu thought some more and came to the conclusion that the stone in Liu Tengyun's body senses the fox grandmother's stone that Xingchen has. This was a completely reasonable explanation of what was happening. Chu had long known that there was a connection between the stones, and he now knew for sure that Liu Tengyun had the smoker's grandfather's stone. But it was not clear how the stone for breaking the seal got to him. It was as if the tavern owner had read Chu's thoughts. He asked him if he was interested in what was in his chest. He added that it may look creepy, but it helps him live. Liu Tengyun told Chu that he would never understand how a person feels when their body collapses while exchanging items. To survive, Liu had to dissolve into a puppet. The tavern owner added that this is why he needed the Chu system. Carried away by the story, Xingchen did not notice that the fox crept up close to him and tried to sink its strong teeth into his body. The guy managed to dodge at the last moment, and the fox's hand, which ended in claws, convulsively squeezed the empty space several times. The fox's face was twisted with anger and hatred. However, Liu Tengyun continued to speak. He informed Xingchen that if he voluntarily gave up his system, the tavern owner would free the fox and allow her to leave with the guy. The tavern owner added that Chu Xingchen didn't want anything to happen to the fox. Chu became angry and growled back at Liu Tengyun that he was in vain trying to threaten or blackmail. Then, Chu Xingchen became angry with the fox for interfering with his conversation and grabbed it tightly by the throat. The fox hissed with anger and sprayed saliva, but could not escape. Chu Xingchen continued to hold the fox and explained to Liu Tengyun that he and the fox were related. Therefore, even though Chu Xingchen could not use his spiritual power, he pumped it out of the fox. When Chu Xingchen felt that spiritual power was returning to him, he shouted to the tavern owner that he no longer dared to threaten or try to blackmail him. Now the fox seemed as if it were not alive. Chu Xingchen drained almost all the energy from her. On the one hand, he became stronger, and on the other hand, he got rid of the fox that attacked him. Chu Xingchen lifted the fox by the scruff of his neck with one hand and looked menacingly at Liu Tengyun, who seemed discouraged. Siphoning the energy from the fox was the right and timely decision. Now, Xingchen realized that control over the situation was gradually returning to him. But it was too early to celebrate the victory. He was confronted by a strong and cunning opponent. Moreover, Liu Tengyun had no intention of giving up. He told Chu Xingchen that even if the fox was exhausted when it woke up, it would still remain under the control of the tavern owner. Then, crooked hands with hooks at the end reached out to Chu Xingchen. These hands appeared straight from the floor. And Liu Tengyun laughed and told Chu that he controls absolutely everything here. Liu Tengyun also reminded Chu Xingchen that he had comrades in this building. He said that even if Chu could take care of himself, he would not be able to get them all out of here safely. Chu Xingchen hugged the fox to himself to protect him from the gnarled hands that were reaching out to them from all sides. But this was a temporary measure. There was nowhere to retreat, and there were more and more hands. But one amazing thing happened. Just when Chu thought it was all over, the tentacle's hands came close to him, and the fox, one of the hands, turned back without causing harm. This event did not escape Liu Tengyun's attention either. Moreover, he attached even more importance to this than Chu Xingchen. The tavern owner continued to watch the developments. Soon, another one of the tentacles almost touched Chu Xingchen, but turned around at the last moment. Liu Tengyun constantly controlled the puppet, but it stubbornly avoided attacking Chu Xingchen. The tavern owner thought further. He guessed that it was precisely because of this strange behavior of the puppet that he was unable to catch either the harmful Chu Xingchen or his mirror shadow. Chu Xingchen also analyzed what was happening. He came to the conclusion that the white doll has its own consciousness, and apparently it has a special relationship with Chu Xingchen and his shadow. Chu then noted that Liu Tengyun had merged with the white puppet and was able to partially control it. Chu Xingchen wondered how this knowledge could help him defeat the enemy. When the plan more or less took on real shape, Chu asked the system to throw him a weapon. This time, the guy asked for a smoke grenade. He had to act carefully. Then, Chu Xingchen activated a smoke grenade, and everything was covered in a thick, pungent-smelling fog. You couldn't see beyond your own nose. For Chu, it was time to act. It must be said that the owner of the Jade Tower Tavern also did not see anything in this fog. It really seemed to him that something was moving in the fog, but he knew that this was a deceptive feeling. Moreover, Liu Tengyun felt completely safe within his own walls. He still had not realized that Chu Xingchen was a serious opponent to be feared. Under the cover of a thick, acrid fog, Chu Xingchen managed to get close to the tavern owner. The guy tried to pull the stone out of the man's body, but it was not an easy task. Chu Xingchen understood that the white puppet was closely connected with the stone. He just needed to pull it out of the body of the owner of the Jade Tower Inn. But that was easier said than done. Moreover, at some point, Xingchen felt that the tendrils from Liu Tengyun's body that were holding the stone on his chest were tightly wrapped around Chu's arm. The guy suddenly found himself trapped. The tentacle shoots continued to rise up Chu Xingchen's arm. One has even touched his neck. But Chu Xingchen could neither reach the tight-fitting stone nor pull his hand back. Liu Tengyun said that Chu Xingchen dare not touch his priceless treasure. But then the tavern owner smiled and said that Chu Xingchen's brazen stupidity would even speed things up. The innkeeper said that if he absorbed Chu Xingchen into his body, the Chu system would automatically be in him. Liu Tengyun remarked that this was a brilliant and feasible idea. Now, even more shoots reached towards Chu Xingchen's body. The situation was critical, and the tavern owner said that Chu Xingchen became his flesh and blood. It was terrible. The appendages were already touching Chu Xingchen's face, which frightened the guy very much. But the situation was hopeless. He didn't have enough strength to fight the white puppet. Gradually, the white puppet's tentacles touched Xingchen's brain. It was an amazing, incomparable feeling. Moreover, it did not turn out to be as scary as it had previously seemed. Chu Xingchen's consciousness merged with that of the white puppet. The puppet gained access to his memory, and at that time, he could use the memory of the white puppet. It was interesting. Chu Xingchen delved further and further into the jungle of the white puppet's memory. He was literally rocked on the warm waves of her consciousness, and a film of her memories floated before his eyes. Pictures floated before Chu Xingchen's eyes one after another. At some point, he was able to recognize familiar figures. The guy had no doubt that the back of his grandfather flashed before him. The area was quite unusual. Chu Xingchen even thought that the events were taking place among the clouds, although this, of course, was stupidity. Just Xingchen's imagination. Soon, Chu Xingchen could see a distant figure that was quickly approaching. It was very strange, but when she came close, Chu Xingchen could not see anything except her feet in leather boots. Soon the man bent low, and Chu Xingchen could see the man's face. The guy was filled with curiosity. He really wanted to see what would happen next, but Chu Xingchen was not destined to see this. His entire field of vision was covered with glowing blue runes. Somewhere deep in his brain, Chu Xingchen heard someone calling him intensely. Gradually, Chu Xingchen emerged from the depths of the white puppet's mind. He remembered who he really was and heard his name spoken many times by the worried system. When Chu Xingchen returned to reality, the agitated system asked him why he suddenly stopped moving, and his eyes closed. Chu Xingchen replied that he had seen the white puppet's memories. The system explained to Chu that something happened while he was away. It turned out that halfway there, the puppet stopped devouring him and turned back to fight against Liu Teng's control. The owner of the Jade Tower Tavern yelled at the puppet in every possible way. He ordered her to absorb Chu Xingchen and then became indignant at why she suddenly refused to obey him. Liu Tengyun gathered all his strength and energy to bring the white puppet back under control. The stone in his chest glowed brightly from streams of energy that moved in different directions. Chu Qingchen took advantage of the confusion and moved away from the tavern owner. The guy took the still unconscious body of the fox with him. But this was not an escape yet. But by this time, Chu Qingchen realized that the stone was the core of a white puppet. Therefore, as long as the stone remained in Liu Tengyun's hands, the white puppet continued to obey him. In the process of merging consciousnesses with the white puppet, Chu Qingchen learned a lot of valuable information. He now knew that the stone controlled the white puppet through the blue runes. Chu now also knew that the shadow was unable to harm the puppet because it had 2 defense circuits. And the shadow attacked 1 circuit. Then the system asked where the 2nd circuit was. Chu Qingchen replied that the 2nd circuit of protection is located in Liu Tengyun's chest. This was the key to victory in this battle, as well as the opportunity to destroy this dirty and depraved place. On the ground floor, on the red level of the Jade Tower, no one suspected what passions were raging inside the building. Here the tables were still laden with all kinds of delicacies. It cannot be said that the princess enjoyed what was happening on the red floor. Therefore, she was very happy when she saw her friends, who appeared right in the middle of the floor of the room. Seeing Chu Qingchen's mirror shadow, the princess initially thought that something had happened to him. But then Her Majesty realized that it was just a mirror shadow of Chu Qingchen. While the guys were getting out of the floor, the princess asked where her master had gone. She really wanted to see Chu Qingchen, but he was not among the friends who appeared. Shizuo Wu replied that Chu Qingchen saw the fox and left after it, and told them to find the princess. The noble guy added that Chu can be contacted using his mirror shadow. At Her Majesty's request, the mirror shadow attempted to contact Chu Qingchen. But for some reason the guy didn't answer. Apparently, he was busy at that moment, or could not talk. Shizuo Wu and the princess began to worry. They thought that perhaps Chu Qingchen was in trouble and needed to go to the rescue. But they had no idea where he had gone, or how to find him now. At this time, Chu Qingchen was indeed in a very difficult situation. He continued to fight Liu Tengyun. He held a grenade in his right hand and activated the trigger with his teeth. Chu Qingchen threw the grenade away. The wave from the explosion showered him with heat and small fragments. The guy still had hope of harming the tavern owner with grenades, but it didn't seem to harm Liu Tengyun much. He noticed that Chu Qingchen was interested in the stone in his chest. He asked the guy if he hoped to destroy this stone. Chu Qingchen replied that he had no desire to destroy the stone. Then he had to jump to the side as Liu Tengyun tried to reach Qingchen with his tentacles. Chu Qingchen, in turn, asked the tavern owner why he needed the Chu system. During the conversation, the guy had to constantly change his position so as not to be caught in a trap. Liu Tengyun tried to charm Chu Qingchen's teeth, while he himself wanted to get closer to him. But Chu Qingchen was not so easy to catch. He did not forget to control the situation. In addition, the guy used a lot of grenades, which the system generously supplied him with. At first glance, it seemed that this weapon did not cause any harm to the tavern owner. At some point, Chu Qingchen managed to throw almost half a dozen grenades towards Liu Tengyun's chest. The tavern owner just glanced at the grenades and snorted contemptuously and impatiently. The explosion was stunning. Clouds of smoke and dust clouded everything around. Such an explosion even shook the ground under his feet, and Chu Qingchen swayed from side to side several times. When the clouds of smoke cleared, Liu Tengyun remained standing in place. He wearily told Chu Qingchen that he was trying in vain. He couldn't be defeated with such a simple and cheap weapon. But while Liu Tengyun was boasting, he felt some movement in his chest area. He looked down and was amazed to see that the stone had activated and pushed forward. More to come. Soon the tavern owner felt unwell. A dense, aching pain spread throughout his body. In addition, purple blood flowed from Liu Tengyun's nose. He roared terribly, fearing for his life. Literally, visually, it was already noticeable that his body began to collapse, and the stone continued to separate more and more from his strange body. Liu Tengyun looked at his chest again in amazement and horror. Now the stone was almost free. The formation that held it was destroyed almost completely. The blue stone seemed to come to life. It shone, the runes around it glowed. Looking at all this was terrible for Liu Tengyun, because this stone had been part of his body for a long time. Qingchen noticed that the runes creating this space were a double formation. He said that normal attacks are not effective against the double formation. But he had one trick. Chu Xingqian contacted his mirror shadow and asked it to attack the runes. And at this time, the guy himself attacked another part of the formation, which was located in the chest of the tavern owner. The mirror shadow fulfilled Chu Xingqian's request with great willingness and zeal. When it came to battle, Shadow Chu did not need to be asked twice. Therefore, the runes received a powerful beating, and Liu Tengyun's body continued to deteriorate. It looks like it itself was nothing without the stone. The tavern owner screamed and howled in horror and pain, but Chu did not feel sorry for him. Chu Xingqian silently waited until the owner of the Jade Tower Tavern was so weak that he could simply take the stone from him. And it looks like the guy won't have to wait much at all. Soon, the seal stone almost fell out of Liu Tengyun's body on its own. Chu Xingqian could only stretch out his hand and take it for himself, but not everything turned out to be as simple as one might think. Chu Xingqian grabbed the stone tightly with both hands. He shouted that it was time for Liu Tengyun to return to Chu Xingqian, the thing that once belonged to his old man. The tavern owner yelled that Chu Xingqian was an idiot, because as soon as he took the stone out of Liu Tengyun's body, the Jade Tower building would collapse and Chu Xingqian's comrades would die. Chu Xingqian replied that he was not worried about his comrades, because when he contacted the shadow, he ordered it to notify everyone and begin evacuating people from the tavern building. It should be noted that the building began to shake even earlier. When Chu Xingqian exploded entire clusters of grenades, the Jade Tower shook from the base to the top. The visitors were scared. They came to the Jade Palace Tavern to have fun. But suddenly there was a threat to their lives. The visitors did not know what to do or where to run to escape. But fortunately, by this time, Chu Xingqian's friends already knew what was happening. They dispersed to all floors of the tavern and began evacuating visitors and staff of the Jade Tower. True, not all the employees of the Jade Tower Tavern trusted the new guys. Some girls tried to contact the owner of the tavern, or at least their mother. But no one answered them. Mother Chen could not answer the girl, since she and her closest assistants were tied up on the floor of the basement at the far end of the Jade Tower. Meanwhile, the guys from the Wujian school launched a vigorous activity to get all the people out of the collapsing building. True, the princess continued to worry about her master Chu. Her Majesty didn't even want to leave the Naphrite Tower without Chu Xingqian. But time was getting shorter and shorter every minute, and the path to the exit was not close. Soon, the Jade Tower building shook violently several times. Large and small pieces began to break off from the walls. Behind the girls, 2 blocks fell from somewhere above. The guys took a good look at how it fell so dark. Imagine their surprise when they saw human skulls, as well as a skeleton. It was very strange. The guys had no idea where these human bones came from. It was a rather grim find, especially since the Jade Tower Tavern was collapsing. Kong Feng, who was not as suspicious as the others, shouted that it was time to leave. With every passing second, staying in the Jade Tower becomes more and more dangerous. People from all sides rushed to the stairwells and exits. A crush and confusion began. It was extremely dangerous to be in such an excited and frightened crowd. At this time, Chu Xingqian's shadow was returning back. While all the people were running towards the exit, Chu Xingqian's mirror shadow was returning back into the bowels of the strange building of the Jade Tower Tavern. In the farthest corner of the Mirror Shadow Tavern, we managed to find Chu Xingqian, who was still clutching the blue stone in his hands. There was no time to waste. The mirror shadow quickly grabbed Chu Xingqian, as well as the unconscious fox, and her arms tightly wrapped around the guy's neck. After that, the shadow rushed straight to the exit. The guys who managed to run out into the street in a timely manner watched with fear and curiosity as the Jade Tower Tavern collapsed. At the last moment, people jumped out of it. The destruction of the building was accompanied by a loud crash and rumble. Clouds of dust erupted from the windows and walls. The spectacle was quite scary, but at the same time somehow fascinating. The people who were the last to jump out of the tavern began to run as fast as they could to get further away from the falling building. The debris flew in different directions and could have injured someone. The kids from Wujin School managed to escape from the tavern at the last moment. Just a little more, and they would have no chance of surviving. But the joy of salvation was darkened by one thought. The guys didn't see that Chu Xingqian also ran out of the Jade Tower Tavern. At this time, there was great turmoil. Some shouted that they needed to run away. Others did not understand what had happened. At a distance, a small group of onlookers stood, attracted by the noise of the collapsing building. These were passers-by who were going about their business, and then decided to see what was happening. Towards the general fall, at the site of the fall of the Jade Tower, there was a whole warehouse of human bones. It looked like the tavern was full of human bones. The kids from Wujin's school continued to look around, trying to find Chu Xingqian. They asked the survivors if they had seen the guy. We also looked among the ruins of the tavern. Soon the guys saw the mirror shadow of Chu, who was carrying their master in his arms. From a distance, it was not clear whether Chu Xingqian was dead or alive. Therefore, the guys hurried to the shadow to find out more. The shadow held the motionless Chu in his arms. The guy still had the blue stone in his hands, which he had obtained with such difficulty. There was a fox nearby. She was still holding onto Chu's neck. The frightened guys surrounded the mirror shadow on all sides. They started calling Chu Xingqian, and also vying with each other to ask the shadow what happened. But the shadow could not speak. The princess assumed that Chu lost consciousness due to the enemy's curse. But the beauty standing next to him said that most likely Chu lost consciousness because of the fox, which squeezed his neck. The idea was quite clever. It was necessary to simply unstick the fox from Chu Xingqian's neck. True, the fox attached itself in such a sophisticated way that it was not at all easy to implement. But with everyone's efforts, they finally managed to separate the guys and free Chu Xingqian's neck. Everyone fervently prayed that it would not be too late to bring Chu Xingqian back to life. Quite a long time had already passed, but neither Chu Xingqian nor the fox showed any signs of life. The guys were very worried and at a loss as to what was happening and what to do. The motionless Chu Xingqian continued to clutch the blue stone in his right hand. The stone glowed, it was activated, and it directly affected the brain of the unconscious Chu Xingqian. At first, the guy's eyes were covered with a black veil. Then a white dot appeared in the middle, which grew larger and finally turned into a white square. So far, there was only snow on it, but soon, Chu Xingqian's surprised face appeared in the light square. The guy was quite aware of himself, but he did not understand where he was. Xingqian wasn't at all sure whether he was alive or dead. Soon, Xingqian heard someone calling out to his master. The employee said that a man came to them. Chu Xingqian thought that they meant himself and hurried to cover his nakedness. The gentleman was doing important work. He was making a doll. And his servant said that a friend had come to him. The master didn't really want to break away from his work. Errors in his work were unacceptable. The master barely took his head off the doll and asked the servant what business his friend had come for. Is this an important matter or some trifle? He didn't want to waste time on trifles. Chu Xingqian watched with interest the events that were right in front of him. The guy understood that he was seeing something very important, but so far he had not been able to understand the essence of what was happening. The master continued to ask the servant what kind of friend had come to him and on what issue. And Chu was quite surprised that the puppet master turned out to be such a young age. Indeed, the puppeteer was quite young, if not young. In addition, he was short and quite handsome. Chu felt that puppeteers should be different. Chu Xingqian continued to observe what was happening. The master did not greet his comrade very warmly. He recognized him, but was surprised why he was wrapped in clothes so tightly. The newcomer really looked strange. His face was not visible. His forehead and eyes were bandaged, and his clothes were somehow casually thrown over his shoulders and hanging down. This mysterious guy muttered something, but Chu Xingqian couldn't hear what he said. Perhaps he spoke a language Chu did not know. The stranger's face was disfigured. Chu looked with all his eyes. He was interested to see what kind of person he was, and also to know his story. He seemed to have either been damaged by a fire or had not recovered from an illness. The master puppeteer asked his comrade what happened to him and why he was in such a deplorable state. Then he showed hospitality and invited his friend to come into the house. The house was not big, but it was enough for the master to live. He had everything he needed in his house, and he doesn't need much. But the house was always clean. warm, and comfortable, although there was no woman there. The master asked his friend what was happening to him. What causes the body to rot? After the newcomer took off his clothes and exposed his shoulders, a terrible picture appeared before the eyes of the puppeteer and Chu. The master asked his comrade that this curse of the demon race was corroding his body and mind. This curse was a rather serious illness, for which there was no cure. The puppeteer noticed that the curse was destroying his friend's body too quickly, but he assured his comrade that he would help him. The master told his friend that he has a doll that removes all curses. The puppeteer promised to remove the curse from his friend the next day. Chu Xingqian gradually began to understand what was happening in front of him and what events preceded it. When Chu Xingqian fully realized what was happening, he almost jumped out of himself. He wanted to stop it so much. But what could the guy do? Because he was not a participant in these events. In fact, Chu Xingqian was only observing events that happened in the distant past. But nevertheless, Chu Xingqian continued to silently shout to the master not to save his friend. Chu Xingqian then saw the reddish mist that he had seen once before. It was a fog of horror and pain that threatened all living things. And to see its source was terrible. The red fog grew more and more. Chu Xingqian continued to observe the puppet master's actions. If only he had stopped. If only he had refused to help his friend. But it was all in vain. The master puppeteer continued to do his job, which he had done all his life. Now the entire space around the two people was filled with a crimson fog. But gradually the master began to realize that he was faced with something terrifying that he had no idea about before. The master whispered in horror that the spell could not be so powerful. The puppet master turned to his friend and said that he had lied to him, meanly deceived him, and used him. But his former comrade only looked at the puppeteer indifferently. Spell puppets are created from people. The higher the level of the person from whom the doll was made, the more curses such a puppet doll can take on. The master used a puppet to lift the curse. This puppet was made by his mother. This doll turned out to be so strong that it could withstand the curses of the martial emperor.
But the curse with which his friend came to the master turned out to be 1,000 times stronger than even such a strong puppet could withstand. In his career as a puppeteer, the master has never seen anything like this.
The comrade had not an ordinary curse, but a heavenly one. He was cursed by heaven itself. No one could bear such a curse, and also no one could deliver a person from such a curse. The puppet master was twisted into 3 deaths. He began vomiting blood, and his nose began to run. He got in touch with something that shouldn't have been touched, but he found out about it too late. The young master faced a curse so powerful that even Emperor Wu could not lift it. The master's body continued to deteriorate, wounds appeared on his hands, and his body shivered. Tenacious hands reached out to the sick master from all sides. They tried to grab him. But by that time, he was so exhausted and depressed that he did not pay attention to it. These were patients. Soon they came to the master and began to whine and moan that they were seriously ill. Their bodies were being eaten away by ulcers. The young puppet maker looked back at them in horror. Trembling hands were reaching out to him from all sides. Sick people came to him with hope, knowing that the master could remove even the most terrible curse. But this time he couldn't. The puppet master could not help them in any way. He urged them to run away from this place. He asked them not to pay attention to the disease, but to rejoice that they were alive. But the hands of people, hungry for healing, reached out for the master with even greater persistence. They tried to touch his clothes or body, hoping that this would help them get rid of their torment. The master could not do anything in this situation. He only begged people for forgiveness. He said he didn't want to do this. The master admitted that he had made the biggest mistake. Then the puppet master appeared before his father, who taught him everything and passed on the craft to him. The master also began to ask for forgiveness from his father and declare that he had brought trouble. The master told his father that he could not justify his high trust in him. He failed to continue his father's work at a decent level and help those in need to heal. The young master also showed the broken doll to the old man. He said that this was also his fault. Now the doll cannot be repaired. His father squatted down to examine the doll. The old man carefully examined the wreckage of the doll and realized that it really could not be restored. And the young master continues to moan and blame himself for everything that happened. His father said that a new doll needed to be made. The old man's words were interrupted by the young master's sobs. The father added that if there is no doll to absorb the curses, they will die. The father also stated that he has a high level and will be able to withstand many curses when he turns into a puppet. He also asked his son if he remembered how to make a new doll. The puppet master was amazed at the proposal his father made. He said that although the father is old, he should not sacrifice his life because of the terrible mistakes of his son. The father objected in response that the guy was really stupid. He said that without a new strong doll, no one would survive. So it's better to sacrifice one person and save the rest. In the end, the father added that they are responsible for the lives of other people and they need to fully justify their responsibility. The young master listened to his father's words with humble awe. At this moment, Chu Xingqian heard his name several times. It seemed strange to him that who could know his name here? Later, the call was repeated, and with even greater insistence. Chu Xingqian finally opened his eyes after a long period of nothingness. His worried friends gathered around him. And the fox sat next to him and probably slapped Chu Xingqian on the cheeks. At least Chu's cheeks were burning. He quickly stood up and placed a block with his hands, as if he was going to defend himself. The princess nearby chirped that apparently everything was fine with Xingqian. Chu Xingqian held his burning cheeks with both hands. And the fox behind him squealed cheerfully, saying that slaps in the face would help Chu come to his senses faster. She also added that he taught her this trick himself. When the white puppet collapsed along with the tavern, Chu used the golden eye while his spiritual power was limited. Chu Xingqian managed to see something possessed in the stone. Chu Xingqian told the system that thanks to the power of the two stones at once, he was able to see one of his old men. The guy added that the story was very scary and sad, but it was the past and could not be changed. But it could be analyzed, and the knowledge gained used in the future. Like, for example, the fact that a friend of the master had an earring in the shape of a snake. Chu informed the system that the man with the earring was close to his smoker grandfather and was a martial arts emperor. He tricked his grandfather into helping him lift the heavenly curse. The system wondered what a person could do to receive the curse of the heavenly path. Chu Xingqian just shrugged. He could not imagine such a terrible act. It was true that Chu Xingqian had a suspicion that his Aunt Fox had fallen in love with this treacherous man who had so cruelly used his smoker grandfather in his younger years. The system estimated that these events must have taken place 500 years ago when the heavenly path existed. Therefore, the system asked what happened to the man with the earring. Chu Xingqian replied that this is exactly the most amazing thing in the whole story. All information about this person has been deleted. Even the words he spoke were deleted, every single one. Chu Xingqian also remembered that on the mountain, the old people did not talk about their past. Now the guy thought that maybe someone had also removed and sealed the old people's memories. The system told Chu Xingqian that they needed to gather as much information as possible about the strange man with the snake-shaped earring in his ear. At this moment, the princess loudly called out to Chu Xingqian. Chu Xingqian had to tear himself away from an interesting discussion with a system that helped remove the veil of secrecy from the events of the distant past, as well as from the past of his elders. The princess reported that they had a small problem that required Chu Xingqian's attention. Then the princess pointed to the freed girls and asked Chu what to do with them. One of the girls stated that she was sold to a tavern when she was 9 years old. She had spent her entire life within the walls of the Jade Tower and now had no idea what to do next. Many girls have been in a similar situation. They were confused, did not know what to do, and what future awaited them. Some of them were planning to move to another similar institution. Xingqian approached the girls and asked what was going on here. The girls were discouraged. They didn't want to cause anyone any trouble, but on the other hand, they had no idea what to do. Having seen so many girls experienced in caresses, the system declared that now Chu was in trouble and he would not be able to get away. In response, the guy tried to bend the system screen so that it would shut up. When Xingqian stepped back to reason with the concerned system, a whole crowd of girls rushed to their knees before Her Majesty. They wanted the princess to help them get back on their feet. The princess wondered why all these girls were pestering her. She had no idea what she could do. The girls said that the princess was born rich and had the power to help them. Chu Xingchen always believed that farming solved any problem. Chu would be glad for the girls to work in the field, but in this hole, in the phantom market, there was no sunlight. The system slapped Chu Xingchen on the back of the head. She stated that the world is very big and diverse, and Chu constantly thinks only about farming, believing that this is a panacea for everything. Then, Chu Xingchen told the girls that he had an idea. He added that if the girls agree to trust him, he has one good way to help them get on their feet. A large eagle soared high in the sky. The sky was cloudless. The day was sunny. But this was not an ordinary eagle that was trying to track down its prey and then fall on it from a height. The eagle had just flown to the big shining city. The city had luxurious palaces, huge swimming pools, as well as flowering and fragrant gardens. It was a big city. A narrow white gap appeared in the dark space of one of the city's palaces. The sound of unhurried steps was heard, as well as the quiet creak of the door being opened, and the gap began to widen. One of the messengers appeared on the threshold. He walked slowly, but all his movements betrayed his nervousness. It looked like he was waiting for something, or maybe he was afraid of something. Soon the envoy went out into the street and turned the corner of the building. His steps were clearly imprinted in the silence of the night. There were no more sounds around, except for the rare hooting of an owl. Soon the envoy headed to the place to receive the letter. It was sealed with a special seal. Apparently, this letter was recently dropped by an eagle flying high above the city. The envoy received the letter and quickly read it. But it was impossible to say whether he liked the contents of the letter or not, since his face was constantly hidden under a half mask. Then, the messenger came to his master, who had an earring in the shape of a snake sticking out of his ear, and said in a breaking, excited voice that another system had suddenly disappeared. This time it was the system of Jade Tower Inn owner Liu Tengyun. The owner said displeasedly that this was the third or fourth system that had been lost. The messenger dared to say that it was no accident that so many systems were lost. Finally, a system appeared that could evolve on its own. The owner stood silently in front of a huge shelf on which there was data on all systems. He looked at the place where he had just turned off the space of the Liu Tengyun system. Then, the owner slowly raised his head up and turned to the heavens with the question that it seemed like they wanted to lure him into a trap. He looked up for a moment, as if waiting for an answer. Then, the owner spread his arms to the sides and looked up again, this time at the myriad stars in the night sky. He whispered that 500 years had passed, but now he had found a way out of the impasse. Then, the owner turned to the envoy and said to continue to monitor Chu Xingchen. He also added that special attention should be paid to the fact that Chu was unable to collect information about them. Then, the owner looked at the clear starry sky again and muttered that it was time to speed up the intervention in the heavenly path. He waited a little again, as if he was waiting for an answer. Then a huge map of the lands appeared in the owner's hands. He twisted it from all sides, trying to find the place he needed. Soon the object that interested the owner so much was found. Then the owner ran his fingers over the map for a while. He looked at different lands, looked at what cities were located on them, and then said that Kanglin greatly surprised him. At the ghost market, everything was as before. Everything went on as usual. There was still no daylight there, but there were many different establishments where wealthy clients came. But something new has appeared on the market. If you walked along the central streets, you could hear people conveying the news that a new establishment had appeared on the market. This new establishment turned out to be the Jade Pill House. People looked at the sign with interest and distrust and wondered whether it was worth going inside to get acquainted with the goods. Passers-by were surprised that a new building appeared so quickly. Everyone knew that the Jade Tower had collapsed with a great roar, and the visitors barely managed to save their own lives. One of the former employees of the Jade Tower reported that the new building was built by a special engineering team. Moreover, it was built in the time it takes for one stick of incense to burn. A sweet girl beckoned the man to come inside and see everything with his own eyes. They don't charge you money to look at it. Or maybe he even wants to buy some pills. Inside, Chu Xingchen personally explained that the Jade Pill House offers pills, beautiful designs, as well as delicious food. In the future, the range of goods and services will expand. Chu and Shizuowu turned out to be very skilled barkers. Their sincere smiles encouraged visitors to come inside and have a good time. Moreover, Hu Songlai himself was sitting at the cash register. Shizuowu showed a small jar and said that it contained 100 nightly pills. These pills make anyone feel like a real knight. One of the girls demonstrated Western divine oil that cured any skin disease. The girl smiled sweetly and winked at the visitors, so they bought oil. Whole crowds of men stood in line to get the divine oil that was advertised by such a sweet and even seductive girl. Everyone understood that the oil was excellent. Hu Songlai simply did not have enough hands to place orders for everyone who wanted to receive Western divine oil. The poor guy, as always, had too much hard work to do. At this time, a charming girl, from whom oil was bought in great demand, attacked Shizuowu. She told him to learn how to sell from her. Shay replied that guys can't wink at customers. Chu Xingchen was pleased to see that everyone had something to do to their liking, although Hu Songlai was not very happy with the large flow of customers. But Chu didn't care about Hu's feelings. Chu Xingchen smiled cheerfully. He now considered himself not only a genius in agriculture, but also a genius in trade. Large families suppressed their original school business. The families had a monopoly and they blocked the distribution channels for the pills. Here in the ghost market, large families could not influence the pill business in any way. In addition, the production of pills required labor, and the girls from the Jade Tower were excellent saleswomen. They could even sell snow in the far north. On all issues that the girls did not yet understand, they could be advised by a beauty who was excellent in medicine and all kinds of potions. Everything was under control, but the beauty was very surprised that Shizuowu continued to wear a woman's dress. In response, the guy explained that he was advised to sell in women's clothing, and his sales increased. The girl with blue hair could not stand the new image of a noble guy and took him to change clothes. And the princess also found work. He was great at giving orders. Chu Xingchen encouraged Hu Songlai, who was already dizzy from the number. Chu Xingchen asked Songlai in surprise if he was not happy that their company had such a large turnover. Chu Xingchen became very interested in entrepreneurship. Apparently, in addition to the craving for farming, he had another craving for trading. Chu was going to solve the financial difficulties of Wujin's school. But as always, at the most joyful moment, some news comes that upsets you. This time, the bearer of bad news was a fox. She pulled Chu away from counting her profits. On the screen that the fox was holding in his hands, the angry face of the coach appeared, who told Chu Xingchen that they were completely irresponsible and had completely forgotten about the existence of the tournament. Chu Xingchen looked around sadly. He had to admit that the coach was right, as he always was. It was very tempting to sell with such nice girls. But it was also necessary to fulfill obligations to the Wujin school. Since the guys came to the tournament, they should put training and competition first and not fool around. The coach harshly reminded that Chu Xingchen promised to return back to the city as soon as he found the missing fox. It was for this reason that the coach let the guys go alone. He believed them. The coach also reminded Chu that in order to enter the Valley of the Buried Sword, one must qualify. The guy was deep in thought. Although the coach scolded him, it was for the job. Therefore, Chu Xingchen prepared to return to the city with his team. Chu Xingchen decided to leave Hu Lu as the eldest, so to speak, head of the House of Jade Pills. The guy protested. He reminded Chu Xingchen that his headaches were not over yet. But Chu Xingchen countered that Hu Lu was still the best merchant in the ghost market. Chu Xingchen also did not miss the opportunity to share his knowledge of entrepreneurship with Hu Lu. It was very convenient to write the necessary formulas on a stick that stuck out of Hu's head. While the formulas were pouring into the brain of the unfortunate guy, Chu Xingchen gave him his last verbal instructions. He informed Hu Lu that they would return as soon as they had free time. The responsibility for all the girls fell on Hu Lu's shoulders, which Chu Xingchen left with great relief. Hu undertook to pay them their salaries on time and keep all the books. Several days passed. It was still very warm. The weather was clear and the sun was shining. But in the city of Shiyu, not everyone was in a good mood. Preparations for the competition were underway. There was no time to rest at the Wujin School rest house. The guys were also preparing for the next stage of the competition. Since their coach was demanding, it was necessary to settle all the issues. The coach showed the children the list of teams that will participate in the elite matches. The guys carefully read the list with interest and some fear. They knew many of them personally. During the previous stage of the competition, the children from Woojin School had to deal with some of the strong teams. They fought against some, collaborated with others. The coach did not fail to sternly remind the guys that their level was unusually low, so they would have to work hard to get even a little closer to the level of other teams. Then the coach ordered everyone to pack up to set off on the journey to the kingdom of God. Chu Xingchen asked in surprise why they suddenly needed to go to this place. The coach was never famous for his eloquence, but this time he outdid himself. Already leaving the guy's room, he muttered irritably that this was a requirement of the competition organizers. Previously, the bearded grandmother Kong Lao was also surprised that the order came to send to the kingdom of God. She said that Jielan and Shiyu City were well prepared for the competition. The envoy replied that recently there had been problems in Jielan involving competition participants. Therefore, it was decided to move the competition to another location. The messenger decisively announced that the kingdom of God promised to fully assist in holding the tournament, and therefore everything would be held at the highest level. Kanglen will not be able to refuse this. Grandmother apparently did not like these statements. This could be understood by the way she knitted her eyebrows, moved her nodules, and shook her thin goatee. The weather was great again. Although this time the sky was covered with dense clouds, the travelers flew above the clouds. And, as always lately, the gentle sun shone brightly for them. This time the flight was much more comfortable. The imperial family provided a huge flying palace. There was so much space here that sometimes we had to look for each other. But the guys often gathered near the fenced sides to gaze at the expanses stretching out in front of them from above. The princess kept looking out for the final destination of the journey. Due to changes in the schedule and location of the competition, the guys had to hit the road so as not to be late. But they weren't against air travel either. Moreover, the journey took place in the best conditions in such a large and beautiful flying palace. There was also plenty of delicious food and rooms for relaxation and entertainment. So, the guys didn't have to get bored, but they mainly liked to look at the terrain passing beneath them. Just she pointed Chu Xingchen to the famous Juxian Mountain. The spectacle was truly magnificent. Chu Xingchen saw the mountain for the first time, and he was surprised why its peak was drowned in a strange purple glow. But this was explained quite simply. Shai told his comrade that there is a lot of spiritual energy in this place. The legend said that it was in this place that immortals lived. Therefore, excess energy causes a violet glow. Chu Xingchen did not understand what kind of immortals he was talking about. He asked the system about this, and in response it reproached him that it was difficult for him to look into the divine encyclopedia himself. Immortals are one of the oldest races in the kingdom. A long time ago, they fought against demons and suffered huge losses. After that, they secluded themselves on Juxian Mountain and rarely interacted with people. Shizuo Wu added to this information that immortals are born with heavenly eyes and a red dot on their forehead. Shizuo Wu added that this point helps them understand the path of heaven. At this moment, all the guys clearly felt that the flying palace was slowing down. The princess noted with surprise that the tournament would really continue on Mount Juxian. Soon, all representatives of the Woojin school clearly felt that the flying temple began to descend. They were flying quite high, so landing took some time. Several minutes passed before the guys could notice the surface of the mountain below them, which kept hiding under a veil of clouds. The area seemed truly magical. Soon, the luxurious flying temple landed with great noise and shaking the mountain itself. Clouds of dust rose around the landing site, and at first it was difficult to see anything. But soon the surrounding area began to appear. The temple landed in a very beautiful place. There were beautiful buildings, picturesque gardens, and a pond with turquoise water all around. It was announced over the loudspeaker that the Juxian Mountain of God's Kingdom was happy to welcome the arriving players. The boys were also told that they were in a special place in Juxian Mountain. Also, the children from the Woojin school were shown a complex where training rooms, alchemical rooms, and dormitories were located for each of the teams that arrived at the tournament. The princess noted that good apartments are very important for the team. After all, the possibility of good rest and nutrition directly depends on this, and this in turn affects morale. At this time, one of the local women approached the guys. Her specialty was purple hair. She clarified whether the representatives of the Wujin school were really in front of her. When Chu Xingqian confirmed that they belonged to the Wujin school, the woman said that she would take the boys to their rooms, which were located on the western side of the large campus. On the way, a woman with purple hair told the guys that the training rooms are open all day, and the cafeteria is only open during mealtimes. This was par for the course. The woman pointed to a dilapidated house and said that their team would be better off in this separate house. The princess didn't like this at all, and she said how dare they treat them like that. The woman replied that she had seen many weak teams that get into an elite tournament by chance and then imagine themselves to be a cool and strong team. But reality will sober them up. As she left, the woman said that she was sure that they would be eliminated after the first competition. So she advised them that the guys should not unpack a lot of things. The princess was furious. How Gung barely managed to keep the princess from immediate reprisal. The princess could not tolerate such an attitude, but the girl told her that if they start fighting, it will be even worse. One of the girls from Shiyu Academy noticed that the representatives of the Kingdom of God were arrogant as always. The princess muttered that she noticed this and remembered it for the future. Her Majesty growled that she would fight for Kanglan and knock out all the teeth of the representatives of the Kingdom of God. But the experienced Kong Feng answered the princess that not everything is so simple. She added that the Kingdom of God has enormous resources and wealth. Many important people of the empire are on their side. Therefore, their resources, strength, and capabilities are an order of magnitude higher than others. Kong Feng cited the example of Wen Mao, who was considered the pinnacle of the new generation in Jilin. But at the same time, in the Kingdom of God, this guy would be an ordinary average person. Chu Xingqian noted that the strongest team in Jialan is not Qinshan, but the Divine Moon Academy. Those present were forced to admit that Chu Xingqian was right. Yes, Divine Moon Academy has always been at its best. These guys took places in the top 10 of any competition year after year. And many times we ended up in first place, or even 3. It turned out that it was not in vain that Xingqian remembered the Divine Moon Academy. It must be said that the guy knew Modai better than anyone from this academy. Chu had to deal with her a couple of times. This time, as soon as Chu Xingqian thought about Modai, the girl appeared almost immediately. Xingqian was not particularly happy to meet this buxom beauty. The guy was afraid that she would give him away. Modai looked impressive as always. It seemed that she had come not to compete, but to participate in a fashion show. Her light clothing emphasized her slender figure. But when the girl saw Chu Xingqian, there was no friendly expression on her face, although she had known Chu for a long time. Modai coldly noted that they had not seen Chu Xingqian for a long time. To avoid even more awkwardness, Modai turned to Kong Feng. She said that she knew that the girls from Shiyu Academy suffered during the group tournament, and she was very sorry. If several beautiful girls gathered together, Wen Mao would appear there. A short but proud guy came up to them and began to talk about how they might have been lonely without him. The princess informed Chu that she knew these people and it was better to be careful with them. These guys knew their worth, and if they wanted to achieve something, they stopped at nothing. Soon, a tall, handsome guy, the captain of the Divine Moon Academy team, appeared. He announced that they had information about all the teams that would take part in the tournament. The Divine Moon captain suggested that everyone familiarize themselves with this information. This will help you get to know each other better before the competition begins. Yishan began handing out folders with information. Soon, Yishan approached Chu Xingqian and offered him a folder of information. Chu Xingqian extended his hand to take the folder, but in the meantime he turned his face away so that Yishan would not recognize him. But Yishan seemed to suspect something. He tried to take a closer look at Chu Xingqian and then said that it seemed like he had seen Xingqian somewhere before, but he couldn't remember where or when. But then the wise and beautiful Mo Dai approached the guys, who asked Yishan if everything was fine with him, if there were any difficulties with distributing materials to the competition participants. Yishan turned to the girl and asked if Chu Xingqian seemed familiar to her. The guy added that he was almost sure that he had already seen Chu Xingchen once, but he couldn't remember exactly. Modai quickly found something to answer. She said that Yishan was mistaken. Chu just strongly resembles one girl they met in the House of Spring Scents. Chucho's sister was there. Yishan actually remembered Chucho's sister, who looked like Chu. The guy realized that he was mistaken. He also asked Chu Xingchen if he had a younger sister. Chu said no. Chu Xingchen experienced several very unpleasant and exciting moments. It was as if the earth was burning underneath him. It seemed to him that he had been discovered. Everything was literally hanging by one thread. When Yishan left, Modai told Chu Xingchen not to worry. He wouldn't be recognized. She added that on that memorable mountain, Yishan hit his head and damaged his brain. Modai added that after this, some events were erased from Yishan's memory. The girl added that Chu Xingchen need not worry about it at all. No one will know his secret. Chu Xingchen felt extremely relieved. He was very pleased with the girl's words. But on the other hand, he was surprised why she didn't expose him, since she remembered him perfectly. Modai noted that contrary to her grandfather's opinion, she does not think Xingchen is a bad person. She also added that Chu once saved her life, but she has already repaid him in full for that. Then, Modai said that Chu Xingchen does not change over time. He again puts himself and everyone around him in danger. The guy looked at the sensible Modai in bewilderment. Chu Xingchen replied that he was not planning anything bad. His only desire is to engage in agriculture in peace and harmony. And he doesn't care about everything else. Modai didn't say anything to this. She turned around and was about to leave. But on the way, she turned to Chu and said that entering an elite tournament is much easier than staying in it. The blue-haired girl and Shuzhua Wu studied the papers with enthusiasm. The beauty noted that it was quite kind of the Divine Moon Academy to share the information. But the master of the Wujin school did not seem to be so complacent after studying these papers. He told the guys that he was going to hold a meeting and everyone should be present. The weather was excellent at the top of Juxian Mountain. Although it was not as hot here as on the plain, there were more sunny days here. Some of the clouds were below the top of the mountain. But in the house, the Kingdom of God teams were not so much concerned about the weather conditions as they were solving pressing issues. Due to the transfer of the tournament to them, they have new responsibilities. These people began every meeting, no matter what issues it concerned, with prayer. They thanked the higher powers for giving them food, as well as for wealth. The God's Kingdom team was very disciplined. The guys knew their worth very well, understood the power they had, and tried not to just squander this power. Soon, their leader solemnly announced the beginning of the meeting. One of his first questions was whether the guys had completed their homework. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the students began to report. They did not take their missions lightly, so they were able to collect a lot of information that interested their leader. Indeed, the guys from the Kingdom of God collected a lot of information about most of the teams that participated in the tournament. But their leader was still not satisfied. The God Realm team was scolded for collecting too little information about Wujin's small school. The guys saw their low level and did not consider it important to take them into account. But their leader objected. She said that the Wujin school's coordination and tactics are very good, and they often defeat weak opponents. And special attention should be paid to Xingchen. Then, the leader pointed out to the guys some secret documents that dealt specifically with Xingchen. It turned out that this guy is far from simple, and you need to keep an eye on him. Representatives of the Academy of the Kingdom of God began to whisper among themselves. The point was that the mysterious they want their academy to take care of the Wujin school. At this time, Chu was learning information about other teams participating in the tournament so much that he even had wrinkles on his forehead. But Chu was unable to read anything positive. Seeing the levels of the God Realm team members, the princess grabbed her head. Her Majesty absolutely did not understand how one could fight with them. There was no talk of victory. Shuzhou Wu melancholy noted that the weakest player from the God Realm team was above the level of the strongest player from the Wujin school team. It was something incredible. The fox noticed that even the rules of this tournament work against them, although they are already the weakest team here. In general, the guys were not in the most fighting mood before the start of the tournament. The first stage of the tournament will take place in Tianxian Cave in Banzhou. It was quite a dark and dangerous place in itself. But the conditions of the competition made it even more difficult to pass this stage. Each team was required to have 5 people who went into the cave and searched for the mark for 3 days. The stage was considered successfully completed if 2 conditions were met. The first condition was that at least 4 people from the team must